Welcome back to Whiteboard Wednesday. My name is Mike Cromwell.
I'm Brian Duvall.
You and I both hate email, right? It's just grown onerous. So can you imagine tickets operating in an environment where people are replied to all and the inefficiencies that might cause?
I don't even know that you could envision that. How many of those emails go unanswered? Probably a lot of them. How much waste is there?
Including
in terms of
potentially important ones.
Very important ones, yeah. And even if you have ways that you manage your inbox, 500 emails a day is not necessarily manageable. And if you've got multiple people doing it or multiple people trying to manage one inbox, then you've got miscommunication, you've got misdirection. There's all kinds of mess that's going on there.
The other question I have for you is on the risk side. So a company's grown that fast is likely to continue on that trajectory. And if you don't have the systems in place, the infrastructure in place to be able to take those kind of support calls, what kind of risks are you introducing to the business potentially downstream?
Well, at that point, you've got shadow IT happening all across your organization where end users are solving their own problems. They can't get to their Office 365 Teams, so they start using their Google Drive, their personal Dropbox. They're going to use any means necessary in order to get their job done, because at the end of the day, they think that's the right thing to do, whether it is from an IT perspective or not. But then all of a sudden, you've created all of this data creep, throughout your entire environment, and your exposure is now huge. I'm assuming they're probably a sales-focused organization, so now you've got customer data, all over the internet. You've got, people that are doing whatever they have to, using personal email accounts. Probably anything that they, maybe even working from a personal computer instead of their office computer because their office computer doesn't work correctly. So I think the exposure and the risk behind that, it's a great point that you bring up.
What about the security
is huge.
risks?
Well, yeah, and security is inherent there, I think,
Yeah.
too. Yeah, because now you have your data, your company's data, spread out throughout, no telling how many different places.
Any other tips or advice? Because you can only imagine this person wants to get this problem solved, and it's creating awareness, I presume, across that executive team in terms of why this needs to become like a prior conversation, a strategic decision for the business that this is something they've got to do and they got to do it now.
And I think it's sitting down and having a conversation with the people that can help you create budgets, the decision makers in the organization, and helping them understand how big of a problem it is. And anybody that sees that, that trajectory of growth that way has to wonder if their internal systems are scaling at the same pace and at the same demand. And as you know, it's very hard to do that internally. So looking at an MSP is going to be a much more budget-friendly, even if you don't have a budget, a much more budget-friendly solution to tackle that problem rather than trying to bring it in source or bring on staff to handle it.
And as you're contemplating costs, like let's just say, for example, the shadow IT costs, right? Hard to really put a figure on what that might be at this point, but you could probably take a stab at it if you don't have any process in place today. So what do you think that if you go from that kind of environment to outsource, and you've got policy and process in place that mitigates or at least significantly brings down the volume of shadow IT, what kind of impact do you think that makes?
I think it's 10x probably.
Wow.
If you really looked at it and analyzed
much?
it. Well, and if you think about it from all the things that you just brought up, the risk associated with the data creep and it being on any number of devices that you have no control over and no awareness or visibility to, right? The inefficiencies created by someone not having the tools or having broken tools today to try to do their job. And they're performing some type of a workaround. When you start throwing down let's just say, how much a resource or an asset costs per hour, multiply that times the number of hours in a day that they've lost in potential productivity, and then look at it across your organization. Go look at it across 800 or 900 people. And then you start to do the math there, and it starts to just get astronomical. Whereas if you looked at bringing in a managed solution where you had a predictable cost model on a per asset or a per person basis, you know what it's going to cost you every month. You can't possibly do the ROI on it to justify bringing it internal, into the same model, and you've got a turnkey solution.